Touching truth revealed, Black CEO overcomes mockery at Gala, cancels life-changing $4.9 billion deal. Wesley Grant stood at the entrance of the Grand Gala, his family beside him. The shimmering lights reflected off the polished marble floor, creating a dazzling atmosphere that seemed unbothered by the weight of the world outside. He felt the warmth of his wife, Claire, clenching his hand, a silent reminder of their shared struggles and dreams. Their bright-eyed children, Amara and Jaden, watched him with admiration, unknowingly carrying the hopes of their future on their small shoulders. His mother, Evelyn, stood behind them, her age-lined face a map of resilience, instilling in him the values he held dear: dignity and perseverance. But as they stepped inside, laughter turned to mockery. Whispers snaked through the crowd of polished elites, each word dripping with disdain. "What does he know about real business?" echoed amongst the clinking of glasses and superficial chatter. The room, filled with the wealthy and powerful, felt suddenly stifling, a space where Wesley's achievements were reduced to mere curiosity. The barbs hurt, stinging deeply, but he pushed through. He had a community that depended on him and a $4.9 billion deal that promised to elevate them. He felt that hefty weight press against his chest as he navigated through the sea of privileged guests. Just then, a rival, the infamous Derek Morgan, strolled over with a smug grin, eyes gleaming with mischief. "I have to hand it to you, Wesley. It must be hard work maintaining an illusion. But tell me, how do you truly justify it?" The taunt spread like wildfire through the crowd, igniting a spark of conflict. Wesley's heart raced, the stakes suddenly global. Not just his reputation but the fate of countless families back home hung in the balance. Even as he stood there, embarrassment creeping up his neck, he focused on the faces of his family and the memories of sleepless nights he and Claire shared, poring over plans to uplift their neighborhood. He envisioned the new schools, the jobs, the resources for families who had faced too much for too long. They needed this deal, but now it felt precarious, like a fragile promise threatened by whispers of doubt. As the opportunity to speak approached, the air in the room thickened. He could feel the tension, the judgment. Should he play it safe, soothe their egos and secure the deal? Or should he bare his soul, speak from his heart about the real struggles of working-class families? He stood at the crossroads, the pressure mounting. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Gathering his strength, Wesley stepped forward to address the crowd. He spoke his truth, recalling the hard days and the quiet moments when hope flickered like a candle in the darkness. He shared the stories of families who worked tirelessly but felt invisible. Moments before the applause could rise, he crushed the deal. He said his values out loud, challenging the status quo. The room fell silent, and in that breath-catching moment, he could feel a wave of inspiration rippling through the audience. As he stepped off the stage, his heart raced. Joy and uncertainty battled within him, but he knew he had ignited something. Wesley returned to his family, their eyes wide with pride, yet clouded with an inkling of worry. What had he done? What would next happen? The questions loomed large, leaving him teetering between hope and the unknown. As the weight of his choice pressed down, could a single act of integrity reshape their futures? Wesley exited the stage, his heart still racing, a mix of exhilaration and dread washing over him like a tide. He sought out Claire's eyes, hoping to find reassurance. But her gaze flickered, a mirror of his turmoil. Amara and Jaden stood close, their youthful eyes wide with a blend of pride and confusion. "Dad, that was amazing!" Jaden exclaimed, beaming, yet the weight of the moment hung in the air. "Yeah, but what comes next?" Amara asked, her innocence cut through by a palpable concern. They were so young, yet already grappling with the cost of choice. A hush blanketed the gala as the whispers grew into a crescendo. Fellow guests turned away, their expressions broken between intrigue and disbelief. Derek Morgan, still lingering nearby, wore a shadow of triumph. "You really think sticking your neck out like that is going to change anything? You've just lost everything," he sneered, reveling in the chaos. "You think integrity alone pays bills?" Wesley felt a fire ignite within him. "It's not just about paycheck, Derek. It's about lives." Each word struck like lightning, illuminating the reality of those he fought for: the mothers who worked multiple jobs, the fathers who couldn't cope with the weight of expectations. "You wouldn't understand that, would you?" The room fell silent, the gravity of his declaration settling over the crowd. He turned back to Claire, searching her face for clarity amidst the storm. She stepped closer, wrapping her arm around his waist. "You did what you believe in, Wesley. That's what matters most," she whispered, her faith in him both a comfort and a challenge. With every apology whispered in hushed tones around them, the lingering weight of his decision pressed down harder. Without that deal, how would they sustain their family? Where would the initiatives they dreamed of come from? He could imagine the people in his community, the ones he felt he had let down. The stakes had always been high, but nothing prepared him for this moment. The gala mood grew thick. Was it sympathy or mockery he sensed? Either way, hearts would have to break tonight. As he navigated through the throngs of guests, Wesley caught snippets of conversations that confirmed his worst fears. "You really think they'll keep supporting him after this?" one woman mused. "Look at what's been sacrificed for principles," replied a man, laughter in his tone. "What a shame." Wesley's chin lifted, defiance bubbling up. He would not be crushed. But what could he do next? The clearer truth of his family's needs wove itself with the cries of the community, creating a fierce urgency inside him. In a corner, he spotted Evelyn, his mother, her hands clasped, a mix of pride and concern playing on her aged features. She approached him slowly and he read the unspoken words in her eyes. "I have faith in you, son," she said softly, "but remember, the world doesn't change overnight." "I know," he replied, pulling her into a comforting embrace. "But I can't turn back now. Those faces, they need hope." The monumental decision had been laid bare. Wesley would have to forge a new path, winning battles not just for himself, but for countless others. But how would he start? As he pulled away, he caught Derek's knowing gaze, a challenge laced within it, one that demanded a response. "What's your next move, Wesley?" Derek called out, the crowd leaning closer, their curiosity piqued. Wesley paused, preparing to craft a response that would echo not just through the night but define his purpose going forward. "Let's build something from the ground up, together." With doubts churning in his gut but resolve hardening within, he stepped toward the crowd. The unfamiliar thrill of taking back power surged through him. Nothing would shift if he didn't act, and every moment hung on a precipice. How would he spark the change that was now, more than ever, so desperately needed? The air buzzed with tension as the question lingered: what would this new beginning look like? It was more than just words now. Wesley was ready to unleash his vision, and the next chapter of his journey was about to unfold. Wesley took a shaky breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of their gazes like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet alive with hope. "Together," he repeated, a little louder this time, as if the word could grow into something tangible. The faces around him shifted, uncertainty mingling with curiosity. "Together," he said again, letting the word resonate in the air. "We have the power to create a future where integrity and support aren't just ideals, they're the backbone of how we do business." He stepped closer to the microphone, determined to shape this moment not into a defeat but a rallying cry. The clumps of guests glanced at each other, and there was a shift, a subtle crack in the armor of indifference. Amara and Jaden stood by his side, wide-eyed, clearly sensing their father's transformation. They had witnessed his battles, his fears, and now watched him shed doubt with every word. Every person here has dreams, he continued, and we can shatter the illusion that sticking to our values is a mistake. I want to establish a fund that will empower underprivileged families to pursue their own dreams, to turn potential into reality. That's our next move. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some of their expressions turned from skepticism to intrigue. Wesley noted a few nods here and there, the tip of an iceberg that could become a sweeping wave of support. Derek's face hardened, his smirk faltering. You really think people will donate to your little pet project? This isn't a children's charity, this is the real world. Wesley's pulse quickened, anger flaring briefly before he pushed it down. No, Derek, this is precisely where change begins at the grassroots, with real people impacting real lives. And I believe there's enough goodness in all of us to fuel that change. He glanced at Claire, who wore a proud smile, her eyes sparkling like the chandeliers above them. Her unwavering faith seeped into him, a lifeline amid the storm. Now, Wesley continued, I understand it's easy to doubt. But let's face it, how many of us are fed up with feeling voiceless? How many are tired of watching our communities struggle while corporations make decisions without accountability? The applause startled him. The sound, at first timid, grew bolder, sweeping through the room like wind rustling through leaves. His heart soared. But he also knew this was just the start. What if they did rally? What if they believed in him enough to push it forward? There was a long road ahead filled with obstacles, but Wesley was no stranger to hard work. Together, we can challenge the status quo, he said, their spontaneous energy sparking his resolve. And we will. With clear communication and commitment, we can build bridges instead of walls. But I need your help. He swept his hand across the crowd, trying to gauge the reactions. Mixed looks portrayed the conflict between hope and doubt. From the corner of his eye, Wesley caught movement, the familiar face of his friend, Antonia, emerging from the crowd. She had always been an unseen force behind the scenes, a supporter without stipulation. Count me in. Antonia shouted, her voice ringing strong above the murmurs. We need a community initiative that puts people first, and I'll help kickstart it. Others began to join in, shout out their support. Wesley felt a surge of warmth. This was more than just words now, it was an awakening. The collective excitement was reshaping the disappointed undertones of the gala into something hopeful and real, but then, Derek stepped forward, a glint of mischief in his eyes. And if it fails, what then, Wesley? What will you tell your children? The room fell silent again, the atmosphere crackling with tension. Wesley paused, the shadow of doubt creeping back in momentarily. My children, he started, glancing at Amara and Jaden. They'll learn resilience. They'll learn that failure is a stepping stone to success. That integrity is worth fighting for. With that, the applause grew again, louder and more insistent. But Derek's sneer lingered in his memory, a reminder of the steep hill he had to climb. The stage had shifted, but Wesley knew the fight was just beginning. How could he ensure this venture didn't fizzle out under pressure? How could he sustain the momentum? As he looked out at the sea of faces now filled with hope and determination, Wesley felt his heart race anew. Change wasn't just coming, it was here. But could he find a way to carry it through? With resolve burning bright, he knew one thing: he had to channel this energy into something bigger, and he had to do it fast. What would it take to transform hope into reality? That was the question hanging in the air, waiting for an answer. Wesley's mind raced as he stepped back from the microphone, his heart still pounding with the surge of energy in the room. He could feel the energy shift, it was palpable. Those whispers of doubt had transformed into a roar of affirmation, but he wasn't about to let that momentum slip away. The stakes were high. With his two children watching him with wide, trusting eyes, Wesley turned back to Antonia, who was moving through the crowd, gathering supporters like a magnet. Each person she approached appeared to brighten, inspired by her boldness. He took a moment to scan the room for Derek, who now hovered at the edge, a frown melting his usual smirk. Wesley couldn't let that face rest easy. "Let us dig deeper," he called out, his voice ringing through the hall. "Let us talk specifics. We need action, not just words." That seemed to pique interest. People leaned in, sensing the urgency in his tone. "Antonia, if we're going to start this fund, we need a vision. What can we do now?" He turned to her, inviting her to lay out a plan, and she shot him a look of encouragement. "Let us set a goal," she said, stepping forward with newfound confidence. "How about getting $100,000 in pledges by the end of the month? We can prioritize scholarships and small business grants for those families in need." "Yes!" someone from the back shouted out, sparking a round of applause. Wesley felt the fire spreading, igniting hope and possibilities. This was more than a moment, it was a movement, but Derek wasn't done yet. He stepped forward again, pushing his way through the crowd with calculated ease. "You think a few $1,000s will change anything? You'll need millions. Aren't you setting yourselves up for disappointment?" Wesley felt frustration rise within him. He glanced at his children, their faces etched with concern. "No," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "Change starts small. Every dollar counts, every dream matters. This is our first step, and it's a bold one." Antonia chimed in, her words like a steady beat. "Exactly. We can build from this, create a community network, foster mentorships. It's not just about the money. It's about the relationships we form." The atmosphere began to shift again, people nodding, clapping, whispering. Wesley could hear snippets of conversations, how they were ready to offer support, how they shared similar experiences. He took a breath and surveyed the crowd, noticing Caroline, a local school principal, standing with a determined expression. He stepped off the stage. "Caroline," he called, pointing her out. "You've seen firsthand how our youth struggle to achieve their dreams. What role can you play in this?" With a flicker of surprise, she straightened up, lighting up the room with her smile. "I can help develop after-school programs that align with the goals of our fund. We can mentor students, show them the paths available to them." "Perfect!" Wesley shouted with renewed excitement. "These are the connections we need. Together, we can build an infrastructure of support." The crowd erupted, the energy electrifying. Laughter and excitement bubbled forth, and even Derek seemed to deflate a little, his self-assuredness waning in the face of unity. Wesley felt lighter, as if a burden had lifted. There was raw potential among them, a collective hope beginning to take root. But he also felt a gnawing anxiety. He had built this momentum, he needed to ensure it didn't stall. Just as he began to brainstorm next steps, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it. A text from Claire read, "Remember your earlier thoughts? About the deal you walked away from?" His heart sunk. He couldn't let the weight of that looming decision overshadow this moment, not when they were finally beginning to find their voice. But that text was a reminder changes in business meant there were still real stakes involved. Was it too late to go back? Could he really walk away from such a lucrative deal for something uncertain? The room was alive and full of energy, but doubt crept back in, weaving through his thoughts. If he continued down this path, would he lose everything he had built? Through the cheers and nods, a quiet voice in his mind urged him to choose wisely. What would he sacrifice for change? In that moment of clarity, Wesley knew he would face challenges ahead, but the thrill of hope outweighed the fear of failure. The transformation had begun, and now he had to dive in fully and completely, with determination fueling him. What would be the next big step? And how would he navigate the fragile balance between dream and reality in the face of escalating pressure? Wesley stood at the edge of the stage, his pulse quickening with the possibility that crackled in the air. Antonia had sparked a fire, but was it too soon to believe it could turn into a roaring flame? His gaze shifted from the crowd to his children, their expressions a blend of hope and uncertainty. They were his pulse, the heartbeat that reminded him why he was diving into this uncertain world of dreams and change. "Okay, everyone," he called out, finding his strength. "We're on the brink of something special here. Let us build on this momentum." There were cheers and shouts of encouragement, fueling his conviction. Antonia stepped beside him, her confidence vibrant. "Let us brainstorm how we can reach our goal of $100,000. Are we ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work?" Hands shot up in excitement. A woman near the front, Sally, the local store owner, proposed a fundraising event. "What if we host a community fair? We can have food trucks, games, and local talent performing. Everyone loves a good time, and it can rally the neighborhood." "Yes." A wave of enthusiasm rippled through the crowd. The ideas flooded in car wash fundraisers, bake sales, talent shows. Wesley felt a smile tugging at the corners of his lips as they worked together, weaving an intricate web of possibilities born from their shared dreams. But Derek wasn't finished. He'd been lurking quietly, and now he struck again. "That's adorable," he interjected, his tone dripping with skepticism. "But don't you think a fair is just a fair? What happens when you're short? It's a nice idea, but do you think that's really going to bring in the big bucks?" Wesley clenched his jaw. He could feel the weight of Derek's words sharp and pointed. It was a reminder that the journey wouldn't be easy. But could he allow doubt to squelch their dreams? Antonia stepped in, her voice steady. "Every little bit counts, Derek. This isn't just about the money, it's about coming together, building a strong foundation, creating hope." Her gaze shot to the crowd for affirmation, and it resonated. Heads shook in agreement, voices rose, capturing a spirit of unity. Wesley seized the moment. "Derek, I appreciate your perspective, but I invite you to stick around. You might be surprised by the change we can create when we uplift each other. This is about proving that small steps can lead to real transformation." The crowd erupted in applause, a chorus of support washing over him. Wesley could almost feel a tangible shift, an undercurrent of determination binding them together in the face of skepticism. As enthusiasm filled the room, Wesley's thoughts drifted back to Claire's text. He felt a pinch of anxiety seep into his satisfaction, gnawing at the edges of his elation. Could he truly abandon the comfort of the known for the roller coaster of community building? What if it all fell apart? But then he remembered his children's bright eyes, filled with possibilities. He couldn't betray that spark. Wesley took a deep breath, pulling the energy from the crowd into himself. "We must keep the faith," he said, his voice calm but insistent. "We're not just a group, we're a community ready to take action. And let me remind everyone, change isn't linear. It's full of twists and turns, but together, we can navigate it." As the room pulsed with excitement, a hand shot up. It was Caroline again. "Wesley, I want to offer my resources from the school. We can create partnerships between the students and local businesses. They can learn, mentor each other, and truly invest in their futures." Wesley watched as the crowd buzzed with renewed energy. There it was, the very thing he hoped for. A network forming naturally, connections being built right in front of him. His chest swelled, breathing life into their shared vision. "Let us make this real," he said, feeling the conviction in his bones. "Let us gather our strengths and form a coalition that no one can undermine." The voices echoed back to him, filling the hall. Yet, even amidst the excitement, the pressing question lingered: what would he lose if he chose this uncertain path? What sacrifices lay ahead? Wesley knew this was just the beginning. The moment of truth was approaching, a decision that could change everything. Would he have the faith to continue? Could passion be enough to outweigh the promise of security? With the support of the crowd feeding his courage, Wesley stepped forward, the intensity in the air tangible as he prepared to lead them toward their first big challenge. What came next could either fortify their mission or unravel it completely. It was going to be a wild ride, and he was ready to find out just how far they could go. Wesley couldn't help but feel the palpable charge in the room. As people tossed around ideas for their community fair, the enthusiasm seemed to wrap around him like a warm embrace. It was the energy of resilience, hope, and determination, vibrating with a life of its own. The applause and cheers had lifted him, but the shadow of doubt lingered. "Okay, let us set a date for our first meeting," Antonia announced, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We can break down all these ideas and figure out what steps we need to take." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Wesley felt a flutter of anticipation, even as anxiety churned in his gut. "I'll bring my calendar," someone shouted from the back, their voice filled with infectious optimism. Wesley smiled, but thoughts of Claire's text burrowed back into his mind. How could he focus on this when the pressure to secure financial stability gnawed at him? Couldn't he just pretend everything was fine for one more day? But then, he saw his children again, the way they exchanged glances filled with wonder. That was all the motivation he needed. "All right, I'll write down all the ideas we've shared. We'll need volunteers for each event," Wesley said, his voice steady despite the unresolved turmoil within. "This isn't just Antonia and me leading the charge, we're all in this together." At the mention of teamwork, the smiles around him grew broader. Even Derek's skepticism seemed to fade, replaced by a reluctant nod. Maybe there was value in this after all. "Count me in. I can handle the food trucks," shouted Sally, her spirit vibrant enough to light up the room. One by one, others chimed in, volunteering their skills. A local musician offered to perform for free, while a teenage girl in the back raised her hand and proposed a bake sale, saying her mother was a master baker. Laughter and excitement floated through the air. Wesley took a step back to let it unfold, enjoying the montage of bright faces and eager expressions, but his heart still wrestled. Yes, they could build this together, but what if the support was only a fleeting moment of passion? What would happen when reality hit? His thoughts were jolted as Antonia nudged him lightly. "Hey," she said softly, leaning close, "look around you. They believe in this just like we do." They stood together holding hands, eyes scanning the crowd, a tapestry of hope, woven through each smiling face. Wesley took a deep breath. Maybe this was the moment they'd all been waiting for, a chance to create something meaningful. "Let us turn this vision into action," he declared. "We can face whatever hurdles come our way. Everyone brings unique talents, let us harness them." As the room echoed once more with applause, Wesley felt a small burst of joy. Perhaps the journey wouldn't be smooth sailing, but if they all worked together, they could weather any storm. Just then, Caroline stood up again, signaling for attention. "I have another idea. We can create a mentorship program, pairing our students with experienced professionals. It's a way to give them real-world skills and experience." The room erupted into excited chatter, the possibilities unmistakable as support and vision converged. Yet, amidst the rising tide of enthusiasm, Wesley felt another wave of anxiety crash over him. How could he champion such lofty goals when his own future felt so uncertain? The question nagged at him until finally, with a surge of courage, he said loudly, "Before we go further, can we also talk about how we're going to fund this? We need a plan to make sure we have enough resources for all of our ideas." A collective silence fell over them, the realization dawning that dreamers needed to ground their vision in reality. "What comes next is crucial," he continued, feeling both heavy and hopeful. "Let us gather our ideas and take them to the businesses in our town. If they see how dedicated we are, they might just want to help us." He was met with nods, and even Derek's earlier cynicism seemed to dim. Perhaps Wesley's bravery was contagious after all. But just as the crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, Wesley understood that they had only scratched the surface. What if they reached out to the businesses and got turned down? What if worse yet, they learned that their ambitions would clash with financial realities they couldn't foresee? They were on the edge of something powerful, but the next steps would either launch them toward their dreams or plunge them back into doubt. Could they handle the fallout? Wesley felt a tightening knot in his stomach but forced it down. "Let us make this happen," he said, his voice resolute. "We can turn the tide together. Everyone goes home and gathers thoughts for how we can approach this, and we'll come back stronger." As Wesley walked off the stage, a feeling of resolve washed over him. They had released their dreams into the world. But the truth still remained: what was truly at stake if they failed to deliver? The journey had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would they rise together or would they fall apart, swayed by fear and doubt? Wesley sat in the worn-out chair at his kitchen table, the weight of the evening's meeting still heavy on his shoulders. The warm light from the overhead bulb formed a cozy oasis against the encroaching darkness outside. He stared at the half-finished drawings that his children had left scattered across the table. The colors leapt out at him, cheerful and full of life, but they felt distant. His mind wandered to the faces in the community hall, faces filled with hope and dreams. They believed in something greater than themselves, and for a brief moment, so did he. But that moment faded as quickly as it had come. Balancing dreams with reality was no simple task. Suddenly, the home phone rang, breaking through his cloud of worry. He grabbed it, hoping it was a call that could lighten his mood. "Wesley." Claire's voice burst through, strained and frantic. "I'm sorry to call so late, but I need to talk. It's important." "Claire, what is going on?" he asked, bracing himself. "I've been laid off," she said, clarity flickering in her voice. "After the merger, they didn't need my position anymore." The news hit him like a punch to the gut. How could things spiral even lower? "I'm so sorry," he replied, forcing down a wave of panic. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I need to find something fast." Her breath was sharp, punctuated by silence, as if she was grappling with her own fears. It was not just the money, it was everything. "What about the kids? Have you thought about how this impacts them?" "Of course, I have. But right now, I'm scared," she confessed. The vulnerability in her voice tore at him. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be fine, but he could barely reassure himself. He took a deep breath, sensing the walls closing in. "I have an idea we can brainstorm together. I just proposed a community project. We can leverage our connections. Maybe it could lead somewhere." For a heartbeat, he imagined Claire sitting across from him, sharing in the sparks of ideas. "I don't know if that's enough," she murmured. "I don't want to burden you even more. You have enough on your plate." "No, please don't say that," he insisted, his voice softening. "We're in this together, remember?" Her silence stretched, a heavy weight between them filled with unspoken worries and shared history. "You're right," she finally said, her resolve prickling softly through the tension. "I'll find a way to make this work for us," he stated, wishing he could pull certainty from the air. "Let us keep each other in the loop, okay?" The conversation faded softly as they agreed to meet the next day. Wesley hung up feeling a mixture of warmth and dread. He needed to find a way forward, not only for himself but also for Claire and the kids. The idea of gathering people to tackle their community project felt heavier than before. The stakes were rising fast, and he needed to lead them through. What if he couldn't? Or worse, what if they fell apart? That night was restless. His mind raced with visions of the fair, all the faces that could light up from the success. But then there was uncertainty, shadows creeping in around every corner. As dawn's light began to stream through the window, Wesley knew the fight ahead was not just for him or for Claire. It was for hope. As he prepared to meet Claire later that day, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Derek. "Meet me at the diner at noon. I think I have some ideas to share." Wesley's heart quickened. Was it an offer of support or another challenge? He couldn't tell. But whatever it was, he could feel the momentum shifting. Would this be the turning point or another curveball? The path ahead was clouded, but one thing was clear. They had to find a way to not just dream but to act. Would they pull together as a community? Or would their fears pull them apart? Wesley paced his kitchen, his mind buzzing with thoughts as the minutes ticked toward noon. The sketches from the kids still lay scattered on the table, but he couldn't focus on their cheerful colors now. He needed to shift gears, from worry to action. The message from Derek loomed over him, a promise of direction in turbulent times. With a quick glance at the clock, he grabbed his jacket and headed out. The chill in the air hit him as he stepped outside, a harsh reminder of the uncertainty swirling within him. The diner was just a few blocks away, a familiar haunt where small-town gossip often mingled with the smells of greasy breakfast and coffee. As he pushed open the heavy door, the bell chimed overhead, and the warmth enveloped him. Derek was already seated in a booth, his expression serious, eyes scanning the room. Wesley slid into the opposite seat, half wondering what revelation awaited him. "Thanks for coming," Derek began, avoiding the usual light-hearted banter. "I've been thinking about your community project." "Right. We need ideas," Wesley encouraged, trying to mask the tremor of urgency in his voice. "I have a connection," Derek continued, leaning in. "A guy named Martin. He's influential with local businesses and willing to support community initiatives. But..." "There's always a but," Wesley said. He felt the weight of Derek's pause. "But he's skeptical. Needs to see real commitment from us first." Wesley's heart sank a little. "How do we show that?" Derek took a deep breath, his gaze focused. "We need to hold a kind of community rally. Get everyone involved. If we can ignite enthusiasm, maybe he'll back us." Wesley felt a flicker of excitement but quickly tempered it with practicality. "That sounds great, but what if no one shows? What if? What if they do?" Derek interrupted, a spark in his voice. "What if the whole town shows up? There's no harm in asking for a chance, right? We rally them, we show them that we can make something happen together." Wesley considered the idea. What if he took a risk? What if he ignited that spark? The diner's chatter faded as his mind fired up images of the community hall filled with people, hands raised, voices unified. "But we'll need a lot of support," he said. "I can't do this alone." "None of us can," Derek replied, a grin breaking through his serious demeanor. "We'll reach out. Let us get Claire in on this. She's good at this kind of stuff." Wesley nodded in agreement, the thought of Claire working alongside him relieving some of the pressure. "Together, we can make them see," Derek said, determination lacing his words. His heart raced, immune to the dinner plates clattering around him. For the first time in days, he felt a rush of hope sweeping away the murky clouds of doubt. They could create something meaningful. As they wrapped up their discussion, Wesley glanced out the diner window. People bustled along the sidewalks, some rushing, others strolling. That familiar image of community, of connection. He thought of everything that was possible if they came together. "Let us do this," he said, an unexpected spark igniting in his chest. "Let us plan that rally." As excitement surged through him, he could see the vision unfolding, a heartbeat of hope against the odds. But just as he was about to stand, his phone buzzed again. It was a message from Claire. "Can we meet earlier?" The urgency simmered beneath the surface. What did she want to discuss? Was it about her job? Or something deeper? Wesley felt the anxiety creep back in. This moment of hope wavered, threatening to clash with the fears that loomed just outside. What if this rally ignited unexpected challenges? What if Claire had another burden to share? The possibilities multiplied, and as he turned to leave the diner, he sensed that everything was about to change. Would hope be enough to hold them together against the storm ahead? Wesley stepped outside the diner, the brisk air hitting him like a splash of cold water. He gripped his phone tightly, the message from Claire pulsing in his palm. The sunlight seemed too bright, reflecting the whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. His feet moved instinctively, guiding him down the street. What could Claire possibly want to discuss? He fought against the rising tide of worry. It could be anything. Work-related, personal, maybe even her own vision for the rally they were planning. With each step, he processed the need for clarity. As he approached the park, a serene spot nestled between buildings, he spotted Claire sitting on a bench. Her hands fidgeted with the cuffs of her jacket, her forehead creased with a slight frown. The ease he usually felt when he saw her was overshadowed by an inexplicable tension. "Hey," he said, trying to sound casual. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," she replied softly, but her eyes revealed a storm of emotions. Wesley took a seat beside her, the wooden bench creaking under their weight. A group of children played nearby, laughter ringing out, a stark contrast to the knot tightening in his stomach. "What's on your mind?" Claire took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I've been thinking about the rally, about everything that's been happening. I'm here because I wanted to help, but I also need to be honest." His heart started pounding. "Honest?" "Yes." She paused, her eyes locking onto his. "Things have been really hard for me lately. My job it's been crushing, and I've been feeling a lot of pressure to perform, to be the best." Her voice wavered, as if she were balancing on the edge of tears. "And on top of that, I've been grappling with whether I truly belong in this community project." Wesley felt a surge of empathy, but he also felt compelled to support her. "Claire, you have so much to offer. Your skills, but what if I fail?" She interrupted, a hint of despair darkening her tone. "What if no one believes in me? I'm afraid this rally could turn into a disaster, and I can't handle that right now." Wesley reached for her hand, gently squeezing it. "We won't know unless we try. And if it fails, we'll face it together. What matters is that you're in this with us." Silent moments passed, punctuated only by the distant laughter of children. Then Claire finally nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in her eyes. "Okay. But I want to make sure we do this right. Let us work out every detail, together." Relief washed over him. "We can do this. The community deserves it." But just as the tension began to break, a flash of movement caught Wesley's eye, a familiar face walking past. It was Martin, the influential figure Derek had mentioned, casually strolling through the park. The sight of him sent a jolt through Wesley. This was the moment they'd been talking about, yet there was an unexpected urgency that filled the air. "Claire, that's him," Wesley whispered, pointing discreetly toward Martin. "Do you think he's here for a reason?" Claire glanced but quickly turned back to him, wide-eyed. "This is our chance to connect, or it could be our worst nightmare if we mess up." Wesley's heart raced, torn between taking the risk and retreating. Should we approach him? Or wait? Their world seemed to fluctuate, the children's laughter fading into a hush, amplifying the weight of their decision. Wesley felt the intensity of the moment grip him, and suddenly, he knew there was no turning back. The rally was more than just an event now, it could change everything. As they rose from the bench, he could almost hear the heartbeat of the moment echoing in his chest. What awaited them? Would they seize this opportunity, or would fear pull them back? Wesley took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. But would the confrontation with Martin bring hope or heartache? Wesley took a shaky breath, his heart pounding, as he and Claire approached Martin. The influential businessman stood next to a fountain, absorbed in his phone, blissfully unaware of the whirlwind about to unfold. Wesley felt Claire's hand tighten around his, her earlier hesitation now mingling with shared determination. "Okay, we can do this," he whispered, more to reassure himself than her. They closed the distance, and as if sensing their presence, Martin looked up. He straightened, a polite smile brightening his features. "Wesley. Claire. What a surprise to see you both here. What is going on?" Wesley's mind raced. This was it, the pivotal moment they'd been leaning toward. "Martin," he began, the words tumbling out with a mix of urgency and hope. "I wanted to talk to you about our community rally. We're organizing it to launch an initiative supporting families in need, and we'd love your support." Martin raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "A rally, huh? Sounds ambitious." Wesley felt the weight of his own words. "We believe in the potential of our community. Together, we can uplift those who feel voiceless and create real change. But we need backing. Your support could turn this from idea into action." Claire chimed in, her voice unwavering. "We're ready to put in the work to ensure it's successful. We have plans and a vision to make something meaningful from this." Martin studied them for a moment, his expression shifting thoughtfully. "And what's your ultimate goal?" Wesley leaned in, his passion spilling over. "To create opportunity scholarships for our youth, grants for local businesses. We want people to know they can achieve their dreams with the right support." A hint of admiration flickered across Martin's face, but he remained cautious. "You two seem committed. But every initiative has its risks. What's your contingency?" Wesley felt the urge to falter under the scrutiny, but instead, he cleared his throat. "If we fail, then we learn. We all come together and keep pushing forward. We won't give up because the stakes are too high. It's not just about us, it's about our families and our community." Martin's gaze softened, and he glanced toward Claire, who nodded, her eyes glistening with determination. Wesley knew she felt it too, the pulse of possibility igniting within him. "All right," Martin finally said, his voice steady. "You've got my attention. How about we meet next week to discuss the details? I'm interested to see what you can bring to the table." Wesley felt a rush of relief and excitement wash over him. "Thank you. We will show you everything." As Martin walked away, Wesley turned to Claire, his smile brightening at the shared relief. "Can you believe it?" "I can't," she said breathlessly, tears of joy pooling in her eyes. "You really did it. You stood up when it mattered most." In that moment, Wesley realized the power of their journey. Together, they confronted their fears, embraced vulnerability, and transformed it into courage. The night before the gala felt distant now, a mere stepping stone to this larger purpose. Back at home, their children greeted them with wide smiles, innocent joy radiating from their youthful faces. Amara and Jaden, oblivious to the weight their parents had shouldered, represented everything Wesley fought for, each smile a reminder that true success wasn't just about financial gain, but about hope, unity, and familial strength. That evening, he gathered the family around the kitchen table. "Guess what?" He shared their news with excitement. "We have a meeting with Martin next week. This is just the beginning." Their reactions were immediate. Jaden jumped up, shouting, "Yay, Dad!" And Amara clapped her hands, eyes sparkling like they were filled with shooting stars. In that instant, Wesley was certain this was not just a dream anymore, it was the start of something grand. They were turning whispers of hope into roars of action. The rally would be more than an event, it would be a movement, an echo of every struggle, every dream, and every voice muted by fear. And as Wesley looked at Claire, he felt a swell of gratitude. They had weathered the storm, and together, they were ready to embrace their new reality. "Together," he said firmly, wrapping his arms around his family. "Let us show them what we can do." And for the first time, he was truly ready to believe it. Now, don't miss this incredible shift. You need to subscribe now to catch every exclusive story and transformation we explore next. Hit that like button, because your support fuels this journey. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts about this finale. Your reactions matter. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to join this uplifting revolution. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.